Hello, welcome back to BlenderSushi Live Noding. In this episode, I'm gonna take you through this the creation of this weird sculpture. It actually was I was inspired by this sculpture in Prague. Um, it was created by this artist sculptor called David Cerny. So I think it was based on the Kafka head, and then it's made of metal, and it does this animation thing that's I think quite interesting. The animation is basically it's rotating the slices of the head. Let's see if I could find a good one. And I think I think this website gives you like a nice snapshot of the animations. It's basically just like a sine wave kind of shaking of head, but sometimes the head's doing this weird 45-degree rotations, and it's pretty random. I'll try to recreate this sculpture using Blender, and the animation will be done using animation nodes. The slicings is actually just a Blender's Boolean, but I'm using Sverchok to create the slicer. And yeah, hopefully we get something that's close to that. Basically, the sculpture looks really interesting, and maybe if I have like a 3D printer, I would like to print this out actually. Okay, I have the Safari closed, and then now this should be running a little bit faster if I go to 3D view full. Just give you a quick demo with using the metal shader. Just now I tried rendering it out using Renderman. It looks really nice, but it takes a while actually to render. So sometimes I just like to see it in using the matcap. It's kind of good enough for me. Timeline. So that's the animations. It's pretty basic. It's just a sine wave applied to the rotations. But I'll show you the slicing bit. So I can start from scratch actually. Maybe yeah, start from scratch. Basically here the secret is just in a Blender Boolean. If you want to manually do it and you don't want to use nodes to do that, you can definitely easily create the setup. We know that with Boolean, if you have this, imagine this is the head model, and you want to slice it many times, you can do that by simply using the modifier, but you need some kind of thickness to do that. So if I use the solidify, the thickness should be like 0.0001 maybe, and then I can use this guy to cut this simply by using the Boolean differences, and then the plane is the cutter. So now the object is being sliced. I'll show you real quick. So this is a Kafka Metalmorphosis slicing. If I'm gonna duplicate this object and then apply it, so that this object is actually already being cut. I can separate loose part. Now you can see the slicing is happening. Sometimes you also sometimes you get a hollow bits, but if the hollow bits happening, you want to switch to carve. I'll duplicate it and reapply, and let's have a look. Separate blues. And then if you want to have like a multiple slicings, you just use the array modifier for that. We can have multiple of the array modifier, and we're gonna duplicate it up. We cannot use relative offset because the thickness maybe is too thin, so we just use constant offset, something like that. So with the Boolean, it's a if you're I think if you have like a multiple cut like this, you know, like a random cut, if the cutter is overlapping, you cannot do it all at once. But if the cutter is not it's not on top of each other, you can actually slice this guy using this multiple slices. So let's say I want to have like 6 cut, and do it like that. Let's cut this using the plane. You see it's already happening with this guy. I just haven't applied it. So I'll make a duplicate and then apply, separate this guy, and then if we look at it, this is like a single object. It's not being separated yet. If I smooth it, you can see it's already being sliced. So yeah, that's the idea basically. So if you don't want to use like a Sverchok to do the slicings, you can simply do that. No problem. It's being cut. It's being sliced like that. And the more important bits, it's how we gonna animate it inside animation nodes. Okay, I'll do that real quick. So I'll keep the slicing. I'll keep the slicers object alive. I'm gonna apply one of them. So this one already being slices. This guy, I'll just call it slicer array. Move it to second layer, and this is already being sliced. I'm gonna group it, Control G, and then separate blues part. So we have this. Now we're gonna go to compositing, and then use animation nodes to animate this slice. Okay, the slices I will gonna use matcap. See which one is better. Ambient occlusion on. So with this guy, I was gonna select this guy and then use objects from group. Select the group. Turn off always, and then tree change. This tree I'll always leave it on, and then now for each and every slices, I'm gonna animate it maybe in a object transform output. Start with the I'll use the rotation and stuff. Before I forgot, we need to also have like an initial transform for this guy. From current, okay. So now we have initial transform. We can use object ID key initial. Wait, this is the object ID key initial transform. So rotations, plug it in, and the objects in. Now we also need to. The next thing we want to do is probably just use a math Euler. And start rotating this guy. So not in the Y, in the Z. Yeah, it's more like in the Z. We're gonna do. We want to make that kind of rotation. It's kind of like a swivel in the. If the pivot is at the center, we just make it rotating side to side. That's actually very easy. You simply just use a number. Let me think. Sine wave. Yes, sine wave math. And it's gonna be sine wave. I'm gonna plug in a frame number into the sine, and the result is gonna be, you know, like a value between -1 and 1, just like a sine wave, back and forth. We can plug this into this Euler math thing, but we need to combine Euler. It's gonna be in the z-axis. By default, it's gonna be rotating just 1 degree, but we want it more, so use map range. Original value -1 to 1, final value maybe -30 and 30. Now if we play back, we have that kind of rotation side to side. It might be a little bit fast, so I'm gonna cut it, multiply the time. Side to side. That's a little bit slow. 0.6. Okay, now it's getting somewhere, but we want to kind of offset each one of and every single rotation. For that, we're gonna use delay time. The delay can be our index number of the object. So now we have that kind of motion. Sometimes the order is not, sometimes this guy is not in the right order, and you need to kind of order this guy first. Sort the list, and then use maybe direction. Slightly better. Okay, that's basically the setup that you need to do. With the rotations, if you study that stereo, sometimes it does these weird rotations. For that, you can kind of maybe use noise and then use animate vector. That's a little bit tricky, but I might use. I'm gonna switch to my file, slicing 7. So this guy. With this, the setup actually looking something like this. Let me show you quickly. Oh, the Sverchok cutter is actually, it disappeared. Well, anyway, I already cut it. So with Sverchok, basically I made this, like a plane, and I duplicate it just like the array modifier, and then the result is a single object for a slicer. So that's what I did with the Sverchok. Now with this rotations, this is similar to what we did in the other file. I can, let's zero out the rotations. Now I have my scan. Now let's see, if I want to randomize the rotations, you can try the wiggle as well. Wiggle is actually quite interesting. It's a noise. This is a noise value. We don't know how many degrees doing it. Maybe 30 degrees as well in a X, Y, Z. Plug this into the seed. Evolution is going to be our time frame. We can control the speed here. Now it's doing crazy stuff in all directions. You don't want it in the... I think we want it just in the Z, not in the X and Y. Zero out everything. Just the Z. Now this also can work. It's like a noise. Sometimes if you increase the persistence, it's gonna give really kind of strange motion. Yeah, that's a wiggle is so ever so useful always. And let's see what else. You can randomize the seed. Persistence of the octave one, maybe less crazy, but still fairly interesting. Oh, it's a lot faster here, you see. Yeah, I like that. Just wiggle. If you want maybe another different trick, if you let me turn off always file set as. You can try like a vector, actually animate Euler. Yeah, animate Euler time and or Euler list. Create Euler list, combine mix Euler list. Create Euler list. If I'm not wrong, you can actually set this up like this. So you, in this case, there will be like 4 possible option for this guy to rotate. For the result, I'll plug it into the rotation. Where's our transform? This guy, okay. This plug it into that guy. So for the factor, I think we can randomize it. Slightly tricky, I guess, but animate wiggle number for the factor, number wiggle. So a lot of concept being used here all at the same time, but you already kind of know the drill. What's important here also the pivot of every slices. At the moment is we kind of assume it's in the right center pivot. At least they are having the same pivot. So this amplitude, so this guy can rotate and then repeat, yes. Evolution from the frame. So let's try this. So there's a lot of pop. Yeah, the pivot is probably not 100% correct, not exactly center. Back to compositing. Wiggle, repeat. Maybe repeat should be off. Increase the amplitude. exactly 1 maybe. Speed, persistence, and octave. It's always interesting. These two numbers interesting. So now we have this kind of motion. It's fairly interesting. It doesn't seem to move the other way around, so I might need to add more. So with this, it's actually more like minus 90 degree here and 180 here. That's probably more equal now. Like it's gonna move side to side in 4 directions. Kind of using these guys to rotate the other way as well, but kind of like the motion is it's quite unusual. It's sometimes it looks at this side and then sometimes look at that side. Kind of maybe the wiggle doesn't go far enough. Maybe I can mix this with the animate Euler. Let's see. Or the Euler wiggle, just mix it with this guy as well. It's a lot of mixing here. Now that's starting to look a little bit more bizarre. I have not actually I have not read the Kafka novel, but I have a friend who really liked the Kafka novel. I watched one animation, so basically it's a bit strange. I don't know how to describe it. Maybe I should have more slicing here, but anyway, this is like a quick demo. It's pretty simple. You just slice an object and then rotate it and then make it interesting, I guess. Yeah, I think I can further study this, or you can also study this, and yeah, let me know your opinion in the comments down below. Thanks again for tuning in.